as we turn our attention to talking HR with HRMAB. You know, this is a session we always look forward to on a Wednesday morning, and so we get great insight and a whole lot more. Joining us this morning is, dare I say, the outgoing president of HRMAB, in Nicholas Roberts.
Hey.
Nicholas, morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
And he's brought along the incoming president, in Tisha Peters. Good morning, Tisha.
Good morning, Pearson.
Good. Nicholas, let's start with you. How would you... Thanks for rocking your socks. I just thought Nicholas is rocking his socks. You guys saw that? Nicholas is rocking your socks. Well, you thought well. Well done.
I did.
Thank you so much. No, do that on Friday as well.
And yeah, yes, definitely. We were doing it at my day job. My day
Good.
job. Yeah.
So you have it anyway.
Yes.
So let's leave it alone. Well, congratulations, first of all, on your presidency.
Thank you.
I think you've really raised the profile of HR and HRMAB, indeed. How would you characterize your time as president?
It was a learning experience. As you mentioned before we came on, definitely I stepped into these shoe steps of Joan. And the aim of my presidency was to, to raise the profile of the association, because I've been with the association for just about 10 years, and I can remember every single year people always ask, what is HRMAB? And I think the aim of every president is to, to leave it in a better position than we found it in. And I hope that is what I've done with the 2 years that I've been there. So yeah.
So perhaps, Tisha, you can tell us whether he's done what he said he wanted to do. Was he able to do so?
He has done it and done more. Nicholas has been an amazing president, and he's done a lot following the presidents like Brittany, Shane, Joan, and those who've gone before. And I think he's done an amazing job at being president, and looking forward to him as immediate past president and giving support as well as I step into the role.
So the heavy hand of responsibility now rests on your shoulders.
Yes.
It can be very weighty.
It can be.
But you're up to the task.
I am.
All right. Well, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
And certainly we've been on Morning Barbados. We'd like to continue the relationship with HRMAB. I think, for me, I know when we started these sessions some while ago, I feel old now, these have brought such enlightenment, not just to HR practitioners, because I've always said that the things you do in HR are things that we should apply in relationships, period, in the house, in how we manage our homes and how we interact one with the other, and then we can also bring that into the workplace as well. So
correct.
Thank you again for your service, Nicholas.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Now, there's a lot that came out of the budget that impact on people's lives, workers, and also employers. So where do you want to start, Nicholas? What are some of the things you heard in the budget that you found rather interesting?
There's so much to touch base, but I know we only have a brief period of time. I actually have to thank Tisha for us looking at it from an HR perspective, because I think always, every single year when the budget comes out, you always see economists having a response. You always see political science, obviously. You always see the private sector, the business sector having a response to the budget. But Tisha reached out. She was like, maybe we should look at the budget from an HR perspective. And I was like, you know what, you're correct. But I think the major things that stood out to us, for instance, would have been the raise within. They mentioned that the paternity leave as well as the maternity leave is being increased, as well as there's supposed to be a scheduled 2% increase in terms of salaries on an annual basis. I think those are two great things for Barbadians, especially the Prime Minister has been speaking in terms of Barbadians not having children on a high rate. We're an aging population. We're not having many children. And then also people are always crying out in terms of their salaries, the take-home pay not being as much, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those were two standout things that the budget got right.
What was your perspective on those two things that Nicholas just mentioned, Tisha?
So I thought the increase in maternity leave as well to 14 weeks was really important, because a lot of mothers, when they get their 12 weeks, but then they use their vacation for additional time with the baby, whether they take their 3 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on their time at the company. So I thought that was great, because it doesn't impact on your vacation, so they can take that later on. But I was really excited about paternity leave becoming now statutory for companies. A lot of fathers get a lot of heat, but I think there are a lot of fathers have been stepping up. I've been seeing it with some of my male friends stepping into the role. And those first few weeks of a baby's life, especially with mom, balancing, especially if it's a new mom, those first 3 weeks are really important, and it creates a great opportunity for dads to bond with their children as well. So I thought that was really good.
The employer sees cost. All right, they get their time. But what does it cost me to do so? So how do you feel about that employer who takes that view?
So I think that for employers, you have to look at it the other way. I think if we give employees the opportunity to to have work-life balance. You'll have a more engaged employee. You'll have people who are willing to come back to because we've given them. And while it may be a cost, it's probably cheaper to do that than to hire somebody new or for somebody to leave because they don't have that work-life balance. And so I think that's important.
So how, Nicholas, how would you phrase that to an employer, to the boss, who says, you all have wanted a lot of time. You have to, one, hire additional people to fill while you're out and about doing what you have to do, or it impacts just my workflow because I cannot hire somebody and now therefore there's a slowing down of production. How do you advance that conversation with an employer so that they understand it?
You're correct. Employers always look at things from a dollars and cents perspective. But I think it was Steve Jobs, and I'm paraphrasing him. Many years ago, he said, invest in your employees and they will invest in you. And I think Tisha hit the nail on the head in that respect. When employees see that they're working for a company that cares for them, that invests in them, that cares not only about them coming in, getting the job done, but cares about their well-being from a holistic standpoint, an employee is going to be more willing to give back to your organization. So even there have been many businesses in Barbados, and I'm not saying many, there have been a few businesses in Barbados that have had a paternity leave policy because now, as Tisha mentioned, it's been mandated by law for paternity to become part of legislation. But those businesses, for example, that have been ahead of the curve, that have been giving those fathers time off, that is something that, that people think about. When I look at my organization, I look at leaving and going somewhere else. Someone may think to themselves, why would I leave? Because, if I have a kid, or if I have a kid or decide to have others on the line, is there going to be an organization that's going to invest in me? But, if they're not, why would I go there? So people think about those type of things. When they don't, yes, they look at the take-home pay, but they also look at the benefits that they're going to get from the organization. So I think it's very, very good for an organization to look at how it is that they're putting or pouring into their staff members. Because once you pour into those staff members, they're going to be willing to pour back into your organization. And that means that they're going to be willing to help your organization be successful. Yeah. And
so cost is a factor, and we're saying to those employers, just understand that that's an investment when you allow the time for that to happen indeed. And I can imagine as a father, I'm not the father, but how he's anxious also to spend time with the baby. Yeah. And so rather than have him come into work and be distracted or not investing as much as he ought to, allow him the time. So the paternity leave now is legislated to allow him to be able to do so.
Yes.
You talked a little bit, Nicholas, just about the volatility that could happen as well, where people, you pour all the training in and this perspective that you had leaves you. And again, I see cost. I see an investment that is now feeling it's wasted because I can't see the benefit of it. So Tisha, talk to me a little bit about that volatility in the workforce. Should we not find a way to have a happy medium?
Yeah, I think you do need a happy medium. And one of the ways to protect against that is really just by talking to employees, planning your workforce, ensuring that employees have the right tools and the ability to carry out their duties, but by also giving employees the space in which they can share and they can also provide feedback on what's going on. As an employer, you have to look at, turnover is expensive. The average, some people say is upwards of $10,000 to replace an employee, whereas it might just cost you a couple $1,000s just to give the employee something that might benefit the organization and to keep longevity. So I think, to reduce that volatility within the workplace, you have to be able to have that communication, keep the feedback loop open, or going, not open, keep the feedback loop going, and really have that discourse with the employee.
I want to turn to succession planning because, and I'm going to link it to the paternity leave. Yeah. The baby doesn't born in 2 days. Yeah. So you have at least 9 months or so to plan and to put systems in place. Do you think, from your perspective, Nicholas, a lot of that is done when these pregnancies occur and the births occur?
No, I think we mentioned and we discussed in various segments on the program that succession planning is something that many organizations fall behind on. And succession planning isn't only for executive roles, it's just many strategic roles within the business. Or even if it is that, for instance, you have a cashier position. Let's say that you have a cashier and that cashier is out sick or the person leaves your organization. Sometimes you're losing historical knowledge because the person knows the ins and outs of the business. The person knows how to interact with your customers. When you lose someone like that from within your business, you may think that it's a junior role. Sometimes you're losing a linchpin, someone that holds the glue within your organization, because sometimes someone may come to your your business because of the type of customer service they're getting, and that at the end of the day relates to dollars and cents into your business. So I think businesses need to look at those roles within their organizations and those people within their organizations that they want to keep, and look and see how it is that they can plan out in terms of if this person leaves, how is it that we're going to fill this role? And many times people or organizations do not do workforce planning or strategic workforce planning to see how it is that they can fill those roles in a worst case scenario, the person leaves, or even how it is the succession planning to continue the business, because business continuity is very, very important. And a lot of times businesses, unfortunately, do not plan for that.
Let's look at it within the context of what's happening now in Barbados, where a lot of departments are merging or doing, they're changing.
Yes.
It's ever changing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that loss of the institutional knowledge could occur in that change that could happen. What advice would you give to any department or government, really, as to how to manage those kinds of transitions?
I believe in those transitions, and Nicholas spoke about it as well, it's really having that institutional knowledge, having that transfer of knowledge. So things like cross-training, mentorship, coaching within the organization. I know of a company that their head of HR was retiring. And what they did is instead of waiting till the retirement, they brought in someone 2 years before to work alongside with that person to have that transfer of knowledge. So when the person retired, that knowledge was transferred to that new person. And that's an excellent example of how you can do that.
But government has announced that some companies are merging.
Yes.
And sometimes you can sit there for years not knowing when that merger will be completed.
Right.
And so as the employee, you have no sense of what's happening and how you can now begin to transfer knowledge in or out. And so how do you respond to a situation like that, where you, as the employee, just don't know? I
think ask questions, go maybe find out, speak to people, find out what do you know? How can I be supported in this transition? What are some of the things I would need to know? And just be curious about what's going on. Asking those questions, I think, is important as an employee.
And as an employer, Nicholas, what do they need to do?
As an employer, I think the same thing we said, strategic workforce planning is important, and succession planning, and not only for the executive roles, but look at your workforce on a whole and see how it is that you want to plan out your organization and how you want your organization to look down the line, whether it be a 12 to 36-month trajectory. Yeah.
Great advice indeed. Coming from HRMAB, this is the organization that leads human resource management in Barbados indeed. And I keep saying to you, membership comes with benefits. So if you are a member already of HRMAB, you know the benefits. If you're still on the edge and you need to know whether or not, yes, you should join HRMAB, because it comes with benefits. A collection of practitioners with experience who are there to share with you and guide you in helping to make better your job indeed. So thank you so much. Welcome, Tisha.
Thank you, Pearson. Looking forward to seeing you again.
I know you're not a stranger. You too. You're not a stranger, so we can always call you at any time, right?
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.